Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Imperfect Show. I'm Susanne, this is Jeremy, and we're just going to be talking this week, hopefully about something that will be encouraging to you, something that's probably heavy on a lot of our minds. And I think there's no way to get around the fact that a lot of things have changed in our society, not just, in our country, but around the world over the last few weeks. And there's just a few things because of that we have to deal with, just not only in our homes, but in our relationships, in our lives, and just generally the way that we do things and the way that we live. And so we've all had to make adjustments in that way. And so we just kind of want to talk a little bit maybe about some of the things that we've done, some of the thoughts that we've had as we're kind of going through this time. And for us, in our home with our children, kind of walking them through this, and even just with each other, conversations that we're having. And we've shared with you before that we are Christians. We live life according to the Bible, and so even with this, we've tried to process it and handle it in a biblical way. So we just kind of want to talk about some of that today.
Yeah, it's been interesting to watch how different people have handled the situations as they unfold. I think initially all of us thought this would be a very short thing. It's just something we have to figure out, and it was kind of confusing, and everyone took a day, not just a day, but I guess about a week to process it and try to figure it out. And then it's become very apparent that it's not a very short thing. In fact, it will be probably even a few weeks more before we'll know what the next steps are. So we're all kind of in a holding pattern, trying to figure it out. It's been interesting to watch different people deal with this in different ways. We look at business owners and people who work different types of jobs in different places. So much of that has been restricted. Some of it's been shut down. You look at even churches, how churches have functioned, and really that first week, everyone's just trying to figure it out. We can't have regular meetings, and so what do we do? And so many things have changed. I've been generally very encouraged with the way people have adapted and adjusted to what's happened. We look at, small businesses, and I think for the first week it was very scary, but most of them have adapted. They've figured out how they can continue to sell their thing or service their part of the community, whatever it is. They're really trying to figure it out. And again, things are changing all the time. They're having to change with it, but they're having to.
Yeah.
They have to.
Right.
They need to change with it, and most of them have. And then you even look at churches, and I've been again very encouraged to see how churches have pivoted. And there's a lot of discussion about, should we not meet together? Should we meet together? And I think this is an extremely unusual situation, and churches are doing the very best that they can. But then beyond that, the weekly meetings remotely through the week, not just on Sunday, but through the week, and all the communication that's happening. A lot of good things are happening. A lot of very good things are happening.
Yeah.
But there's still, particularly within the context of a family, if your family is home together and things have changed in your family dynamic, there is the risk of just doing your best to hang on and try to get to the other side. We're just going to hang on. Hopefully they'll figure this out. It seems like don't have any idea what's going on. But the government will figure this out. They'll send us back to work, send the kids back to school, and things will get back to normal. And we're hanging on for that to happen. And I think one of the important things, one of the perspective things we need to really get a hold of as we're going through a difficult time like this one is that we will get to the other side of it. And it may be that one of the most important, most critical times of our life are the moments that we're going through right now. Instead of just trying to get through it, we really need to say, what can I do to make the best use of the time that I have? And that's one of the things that we've tried to figure out. I don't think anyone has it figured out, but we've done our best to say, look, we're not on vacation. Things are different, but we're still working. We're still going to school. We're still growing and learning as a family. And this is a time for us to really grab hold of the moment and make the best of it. So that's where I think this discussion has brought us to, just trying to share some of those things with you. So a couple of things, and I'll throw them out one at a time, and if you want to talk about some of these things as well, and how we've done some of this. Again, from a perspective standpoint, one of the important things for me to keep in mind, and I think our family to keep in mind, is that when this is all over, how we went through this time, the decisions that we made, the attitudes that we had, how we treated each other, all those things, how we went through this time will be remembered. And we need to ask ourselves, how do I want to be remembered on the other side of this crisis, of this difficulty, of this trial? How do I want to be remembered on the other side of this? And connected to that is what example do I want to set for my children in the context of my family? With that in mind, what are some thoughts that you have about how do I want to be remembered on the other side of this? And how does that shape kind of the daily routines of family life?
Well, I think we've kind of all seen several responses to this situation. Some people have completely thought, well, there's no way it's real, have not really taken it seriously. Then there's people, the complete opposite that have kind of freaked out and are isolating themselves at home so much that they're not, really going to the store. They're not really, I'm just hunkering down and I'm just going to try to make it, like what you were saying. I'm just going to try to make it with what I have, and that's how it's going to be.
Right.
And so I feel like on both ends of the spectrum, when you have children in your home and you're trying to lead them through this time, it's not really healthy. I think either one of those is not really a healthy way to kind of lead them through this.
Because you're not leading them through.
Because it's not like you're just, on either end of that spectrum. And so I feel like for us, we've tried to find some balance, in the kind of in the middle. That yes, this is a very serious thing, and we need to do our part, and we need to take seriously what is being said about it and the precautions that are being recommended for us to take. But that doesn't mean we're going to stop living. That doesn't mean we're going to just pause everything and not, do the bare minimum and not really live. We're not going to do that. And so I feel like that we have really tried to kind of find the balance between those two and really taking it seriously, but at the same time, we're going to continue to do the same things we've always done in a different way. We're still doing church, we're still having school, we're still doing all these things. It's different and it looks different. We can't go to all the places that we've always gone, and we can't, do all the things, but we can still find the balance, in the middle of all of that. And so I feel like we've really attempted to do that and try to do that. So, I think there's really some opportunities that we can take during this time that we wouldn't have otherwise. And so I feel like we've really tried to take advantage of those opportunities in the middle of that balance. And
moving through that in a really intentional way, in a positive way, in a helpful way.
Yeah.
Again, knowing we'll get to the other side of it, and largely right now what we're doing is setting an example for our kids to follow. There will be another crisis at some point. Maybe it will be many years in the future. We don't have any idea. I think, in our lifetime, probably the two major crisis moments, if there are two major, there's a lot of stuff that happens in life, but was September 11th, 2001. That would have been the big crisis moment. And, we were younger and dealing with things. We had young kids, very, very young kids then, trying to deal with that. And then the housing crisis of 2008. This is different because it's really on a global scale. And so
it could be really scary.
And it can be scary.
Because it's like that.
But we have the opportunity to help our kids see how to go through a difficult time like this.
Yeah. And really, I feel like we're both pretty calm people. Like, we're not freak out time people. We're both kind of like, okay, hang on a second.
Yeah.
Let's just look at the situation for what it is. Let's figure it out. How are we going to go? And so I think naturally we're just not people that immediately just kind of respond that way.
I think that's right.
But then as things continue to go on, and I think for all of us, maybe we're seeing this go on a little bit longer than maybe we thought we would, like you said. And so that can start to kind of maybe let fear creep in a little bit, kind of some anxiety, and maybe some thoughts like, oh my goodness, like, how do I now, continue to keep my kids calm in this? And I think just responding calmly to what's, without downplaying it, but also responding in a calm way, like, you know what, we're going to be fine. We're going to go through this together. We're going to come through on the other side this way, and just taking advantage of those small teachable moments, even within our family. And I think there's a lot to learn about relationships and, the way that we talk to each other and just life itself. I think there's so much to be learned about all those things during this time.
So that's the first thing. Another perspective thing I think that's been helpful. I even had this conversation with a small business owner today. The idea, and this would be kind of the second thing from a perspective standpoint, this isn't something you do, I guess, just something you realize, that we're not alone. We're not going through this alone. Now, I think that might have a couple of meanings. One, as Christians, we would say we're not alone. God has promised to be with us, and certainly He is. He's bigger than us. He's got a plan. And so we can trust Him on that level ultimately. But then we also have to step back and look around us and realize we're not alone. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of people going through the exact same thing we're going through. And although we'd never want other people to go through difficult times, there's a certain comfort in knowing I'm not in this all by myself. The desperation, the despair. Yeah. I think it's the city of Los Angeles right now that kind of their tagline is, what do they say? Hashtag alone together. Yeah. Hashtag alone together, which is kind of a silly marketing thing. But there is something to that. When you're going through a crisis moment, realize I'm not the only one. We're not the only ones. It's going to be okay. We start to panic when we feel like we're the only ones that are going through something.
And I feel like it can be as much as, what we talked about, the people on the one end of the spectrum who are just completely isolating and not, even going out to go to the grocery store, or we're just going to stay here and wait for it all to blow over. I feel like that you can be so encouraged by, everyone needs, everyone needs groceries. There's basic things that we all need, and it is okay to go to the grocery store and get the things that you need. But I've been so encouraged by going. There's one grocery store that I like to go to. It's a smaller type store. Going there and that attitude of we're kind of all in this together, and it's really just everyone doing their part to follow everything that everybody's saying to do. Keep your distance, all those things, not buy too many things of one thing or whatever. But to be around people who are, we're all working together to try to get through this as best as possible. And it really is an encouragement to be around, people that are having that attitude of, we're all kind of in this together. And so I think along with that too is an encouragement to reach out to the people that maybe that are like that. Like if you have a neighbor that is a little bit older and maybe they don't want to go out, is maybe reach out to them and send them a text or knock on their door and say, hey, what can I do for you? And just to allow people to feel that, like that they're not alone in this, that we're all kind of doing our best and we're all in this together. And I think it's such an encouragement to reach out even in the middle of all of this, outside of yourself, outside of your home. And that's been an encouragement to me, just to be able to see other people kind of go through this in a really good way. And I feel like our community, it's kind of brought a lot of that, all of us together.
Yeah, it's good to remember we're not alone. So here's another thing that I guess kind of a question you can ask yourself, and there's a couple of parts to this, but would you still be doing what you're doing right now if the people around you weren't panicking? So would you still be acting in the same way? Would you be hoarding toilet paper and knocking people down in the grocery store? We just said, we're all in this together. Some people didn't get the memo. Some people forgot that we're all in this together. Right. Would you be doing the things you're doing, worried about the things you're worried about, panicking or experiencing the anxiety that you are, if it weren't for the people around you?
Yeah.
So there's that part of it. The other part of it, it's a connected, I guess, statement. Are you responding to what's happening right now emotionally or rationally? Are you responding emotionally or rationally? Are you making the decisions you make out of fear of the unknown, fear of what might come down next? We're constantly being force-fed these decisions from on high, right? First, we were told to limit our interaction to groups of, I think 250 was the first number, and then 100, and it quickly got down to 10, and now it's, if you don't live in the same house, don't talk to each other. It was, you can go out for essential things, and then it's kind of gotten all the way back to don't even go out unless you absolutely have to, and if you do, wear a full covering. I mean, it's getting crazy, right? Yeah. So are you afraid of the next thing that's going to happen, and that's why you're responding the way you are? Is it fear that's motivating your decisions, or is there a rational process where you're actually making good decisions based on good information? Is it fear or fact? And when it comes to leading your family through a time like this, man, one of the big lessons that all of us need to know and get a hold of, but one of the big lessons our kids have to understand is it's in the crisis moments when the cooler heads will absolutely prevail. And we can panic if we want to. We can get caught up in what other people are doing, or we can step back and say, all right, what's real here? And let me make a real decision based on fact instead of fear.
Yeah, and that can really speak volumes to how kids process, to them, how to go through this process and how to process that. when you go to the store and people are, and I haven't personally seen people fighting over things where I've gone. I've on purpose not gone to the places where I've heard these things happening because I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to see that. I don't want my kids to see that. And so when you see that happening, or when you see empty shelves of something because other people have taken all of it and there's not any left for the people coming behind them, and when your kids see that, and we were at the store where, our kids saw that and it was kind of like, oh, like, why is that? That's a good opportunity to, that's fine. It's not a big deal. We're going to just get what we need, or we're just going to do this. And not even, even when you have the news on, you hear things, and not responding
Right.
in that fear. It teaches such a lesson to them that doesn't need to be, it's okay to feel afraid. And there is some of those feelings of uncertainty, and maybe we are a little bit afraid because we just don't know what's going to happen. And that's okay. But to respond out of that, or to respond in, that way, it's just not good. It's not healthy. And we can teach our kids such a good lesson
Right.
in how to respond in these kind of situations.
Yeah, we said this when we were talking about parenting a couple of weeks ago or last week. But really, as a parent, you have to remember that your job, the reason you're a parent, is to train your children so they can one day be out on their own. Mm-hmm. And if we can keep that in mind as we go through this, then we will teach the right lessons. Why should we remain calm? Why should we help folks, those little folks in our homes, maybe they're older even, well, why should we do our best to help them through that? Well, because we're teaching them how to go through the next national or global pandemic, or the next economic crisis, or the next, whatever.
Yeah.
We're teaching them right now how to deal with that in a good way. And so asking yourself that question, am I doing this out of fear or out of fact? Is it because of what other people are doing, they're panicking, and so I am? Or is there something more at work? And I think that's really, really important. Here's a great question. Will your behavior, will my behavior improve my situation? Will my behavior improve my situation? One of the things I want to teach my family is, as you consider the situation you find yourself in, don't waste motion or energy or, anxiety, whatever. Don't waste what you have doing something that doesn't matter. So much of the fighting, the arguing, the friction in a home during moments of crisis is absolutely wasted movement. It does not improve your situation. If anything, it serves as a weight to drag you down and drag your family down. There's no reason for it. The things you're doing right now, are they going to improve your situation? This is crazy. I was talking today about this with someone else as well. The number of people who are doing these silly challenges on social media and doing all this crazy stuff, and now people are doing the I'm bored at home, quarantine stuff. None of that's evil, none of it's bad. Some of it's really, I guess, breaks the ice or whatever. Mm-hmm. But if that's what you consume your day with, it's not really helping your situation. Again, entertainment is good. Sit and watch Netflix, I guess. We'll probably do that even later today. Yeah. But be intentional and ask the question, is what I'm doing making my situation better? Mm-hmm. What an important lesson to abide by, but also to teach your children.
And really just to continue to do the things that you were doing before as best as possible you can in the situation, as far as keep things as normal as possible with school and your routine, and obviously things are going to be a little out of routine, and we're going to do some things now that we normally wouldn't do, and just trying to find balance in all of that, but really is how are you going to come out of this better than you were before, or are you going to come through this having continued to grow in the way that you were starting to before this happened, with your daily routine and with your schooling or with work or whatever you have that's going on right now that's the same as it was before this started, but that might be a little bit different now. And the way that we respond to the situation is so, I think is really critical.
Yeah.
And that, is not to just to continue to respond correctly and have that in your mind as you're going through it. And are my relationships going to be healthy, or am I going to do something right now in this because I'm bored and because I'm really getting annoyed with the people in my house that's going to damage a relationship? And so I think we've had some teaching moments with that too over the last couple of weeks with our kids, and I think personally, probably too, is just because things are so different and some things can get really frustrating. But just having teachable moments throughout that help you to grow a relationship and continue to allow it to be healthy and not to do anything that will be damaging to it. So I think we have a couple of kids that are pretty social, and so this is a really hard time, when you just want to see people that are not your family that you're living with right now. But all these things are good reminders, like you're not going through this alone. Your other friends are all doing the same thing you're doing right now, and they're missing everybody. And just being creative with how you're allowing them to kind of go through this, and allowing them to continue to see that you can grow your relationships. You can still come through this in a good, healthy way.
So do things that will help your situation. Very important. Here's one that I think is often overlooked, and if you follow us or follow me, I have a blog and do other YouTube videos and do other stuff, and we do this, and Susanna does writing. A lot of that, I know for me, and I think for both of us, is a way to kind of document the thoughts that we have and the things that we're learning. One of the things I think we fail to do as human beings now is record the lessons that we're learning at this moment in time. So we're going through a trial, we're going through a difficult time, whatever that is, and it may be an overwhelmingly difficult time. And, this is probably a good time to say, some people are stuck at home and that's what they're dealing with. Other people are sincerely dealing with severe trials right now because they are struggling with their business. Or on the other side, we think of all of our healthcare professionals and the many folks who are in that first responder community, and a lot of folks who they went from working normal hours to working 18 hours a day, and they're dealing with stuff all of the time, and this has truly impacted their lives. So the what are you dealing with definitely has a scale or a spectrum. But throughout the trial, the difficulty, the time in this historic moment we're in, record your thoughts, record the lessons that you're learning. Understand that you'll pass this way again someday. Hopefully it won't look exactly like this, but you will. And you need to have a way to record those things, to remember those things. Maybe it's doing a daily or a weekly video. Maybe it's writing things down in a journal. Maybe it's, something else. But how are you recording the lessons that you're learning? This could be a time that you get through, or it could be an extremely valuable, life-enriching time if you'll learn from it. Going to school can be very, very difficult, but you learn things there that make the rest of your life easier or better. In different types of training. When we were in the military, you train hard and it's very, very difficult, but you're not doing it for the difficulty. You're doing it so that you can learn something that can be used later. And I think now we have a great opportunity to really learn some things that can be a help to us in the future.
Yeah, it can be easy to just kind of want this to be over with and just kind of let's just do what we need to do to get through this, instead of stopping and really thinking about what, can I be learning through this time? What can I be, maybe taking some extra time each day to do, like you said, like Jeremy said, some journaling and just kind of some things that you're thinking about, and maybe some things that you're learning, and that will help you in the future. So I feel like taking advantage of the time that this unique time that we have to be able to learn something from it. And maybe it's just learning the way that other people are going through it.
Right.
Watching the way that the nurses and healthcare workers are kind of going through this, and the things that they're doing to really set aside their own, themselves and their kind of time that they could have with their families to spend more time, at work and helping people and all of that. And really just thinking about all those people that have lost their jobs and maybe everything that they're going through right now. And maybe some people that are older and maybe really can't get out because of maybe their immune system's compromised or something, and just kind of going through and all thinking about all those people that are going through all those things, and what can you learn about the situation that will help you in the future with that, instead of just wishing the time to go by and hoping that we get on the other side of this very soon.
Yeah, using this as a learning time and one that you can grow through. And again, if it's not you that takes those lessons forward, it could be your children or your grandchildren. You have no idea what's coming, but don't waste this time. Which takes us to the next thing, and this is not toward the end because it's unimportant, but you kind of build to this. But there needs to be a time where you simply pray. And again, if you're not a Christian person or a person of faith, this may be foreign to you. But prayer is extremely important all of the time, But when you're in a crisis moment, praying personally and praying with your family, it communicates your own understanding that you're not all there is, that the world that you see right in front of you is not all there is, and that there is a God who, although you're not in control, is in control and has a plan, and you're putting your trust and your confidence and your hope in Him. Principally, I believe we should do everything we can to control everything we can, but fear creeps in when we lose control, and that's where you find yourself in moments of crisis. But instead of fear, put your faith and your confidence in God. You need to spend some time in prayer, and it kind of sets the agenda the right way. It creates a focus that you need in moments of difficulty.
Yeah, and it's just using those lessons, and praying through that and praying for other people that really helps us to, I feel like, go through that process of, it's not about me and it's not about the way that I can handle this, but it's about how God can help me, and not in our strength, but in His strength, be able to process all of this.
Yeah. Next, and we have two more here quickly. Next, stop looking at yourself and help others. Stop looking at yourself and help others. We touched this throughout, but again, the reason for panic, the reason for fear, the reason for hoarding, the reason for a lot of the nonsensical stuff that people do in moments of crisis is because they are absolutely focused right here, just on themselves and their own families, when really they need to lift their head and look up and say, there are a lot of people who are struggling, some struggling much more than me. And as it relates to this particular situation, there are those who absolutely cannot leave their homes. The elderly, people who are ill for one reason or another, people who are really struggling. In our community, the community that we live in, there are a lot of military folks and a lot of first responder families. So we have a lot of married single family or single parent kind of situations where the husband or the wife is working and the other spouse is at home. A lot of different situations, but stop looking at yourself all of the time, focused on yourself all of the time, and raise your head, look up, and look for people to help. It changes your own perspective on what's happening around you.
Yeah, and just even thinking about, like you mentioned earlier, the small business owners and being an encouragement to them. And as I've gone to the grocery store and went over to like a little local coffee shop the other day that has a drive-through little station open for where you can drive through and grab some coffee. Just kind of as I'm doing those kinds of things, is just making sure that I give them like a little word of encouragement and just say, thanks for doing all this, and just kind of asking them how things are going and how all these things are impacting them. But just those things I think can be such an encouragement and such a help to even people like that who are probably struggling and trying to figure out how to make it through this. And not just, for me and how things have changed for us and our family, but just being encouragement to other people and whatever that looks like for your circle, for encouraging your neighbors, just people that that are having a difficult time, reaching out to a friend who might be alone or dealing with, maybe like a husband being gone or a spouse being gone. I don't know, just finding little ways that you can think about other people in the midst of all of this. And no matter how difficult your situation is, there's always someone else that I feel like probably has it worse than you do. And so just getting our eyes off of us and, maybe what's happening with us personally onto other people. Yeah.
Focus on others is extremely important. And then finally, just as we kind of wrap it all up, just go to work. Just go to work. Again, look at your situation, understand it may be difficult, work through the difficulty, whatever that is. Get your perspective right, view the world around you right and others. Look to God for the things that you don't understand and can't control. Journal, record what you're going through so that you can share that later on through the next trial. But at some point, you just have to get up and go to work. And I think the people who will win in the midst of a difficulty are the people who are willing to do the hard work of getting up and going to work. And maybe that means going to a job. Maybe it means getting outside of your home and helping other people. Whatever that means, don't get so stuck sitting on the couch or doing your thing or protecting yourself that you don't go to work. Get up and move and go to work. And it's in these moments where you really see, I think, what's deep down inside of a person.
Yeah, and I think it's really the opposite of hoping that this time will pass. It's really, what can I learn? What can I do? how can I be a blessing to other people? How can I use what maybe God's done in my life to help other people during this time? You know, how can I be a testimony of Him to others? And I think this is really a time like this is really where that will show. And instead of just wishing the time will pass, and we all kind of, you know, we all do. We are all hoping to get on the other side of
Yes.
this. But instead of just wishing the time to pass, let's take advantage of where we are now and do the most that we can with this time that we have while we're all going through this.
Yeah, that's good. Very good.
That's it.
Hope that's a help to you. Let us know. We'd love to hear from you. And again, we're all going through this. We're all going through it together. Maybe you're dealing with something specific, a family issue or a thing you're wondering about, you're concerned about, you want some help and perspective on. We have so little figured out, but we'll do the best we can to figure it out and share that. So, you know, maybe that can be a help to you. But whatever the case, wherever you are, be safe. And we will certainly get to the other side of this. And the question you need to keep asking yourself is, how will I be remembered when all this is over? Hope you have a good weekend, and we'll talk to you next time.